All right, so get ready because on today's deep dive, we're going way beyond just the octagon itself.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be tackling a big question.
Yeah. Okay.
Who owns UFC?
Right.
And you know what? You might be surprised to learn it's not as simple as you think.
Right.
It's not just Dana White up there making all the decisions.
Definitely not.
This is about big corporations and global finance and all these different interests kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story, actually.
Yeah.
When you look at how the UFC kind of started out almost as this underground thing.
Right.
And now it's this global phenomenon.
That's huge. Yeah.
The money behind it has been a huge part of that.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So to kind of guide us through this whole web, we're using this article called Who Owns UFC?
All right.
And the first thing we should probably understand is that the current owner of UFC isn't like one person.
Right.
It's a whole company.
A whole company.
Called TKO Group Holdings.
Exactly. And, TKO Group Holdings, that name came about because of this huge power move in the world of sports and entertainment.
Right.
When WWE, the wrestling giant,
huge,
merged with Zuffa, which was like the parent company of UFC before all this happened.
Okay.
And this was back in September of 2023.
Oh, wow. So pretty recent.
Yeah.
And it created this like mega company.
Yeah, massive is almost an understatement.
Yeah, right.
Think about it. You've got WWE with its theatrical wrestling.
Yeah.
You got UFC with like no holds barred fighting.
Right.
All under one roof.
Yeah. And the pay-per-view events, the merchandise.
Oh,
like the global fan bases, it's a huge empire.
Oh, absolutely.
But it gets even more complicated because TKO Group Holdings, it's actually owned by another big player.
Oh, okay.
Endeavor Group Holdings.
That's when it gets really interesting, I think. Endeavor, if they're so deep in the entertainment industry, they represent like everybody.
Yeah, like actors, musicians, athletes.
Yeah, all of them.
It's wild.
Now they've got a piece of UFC.
Yeah.
Which is this like crazy lucrative, fast-growing market.
So they went from like negotiating movie deals to now like having a stake in these fights.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
It's a big jump for sure.
But let's like break this down even more.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it.
Who actually owns what in all of this?
All right, so within TKO Holdings, Endeavor has the controlling stake. 51%. Which basically means that they have the majority vote.
Gotcha. So they call the shots.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. What about the other 49%?
That belongs to the former WWE shareholders.
Okay.
And that's where we see some familiar faces, I think. From like the wrestling world.
Okay.
Vince McMahon, the former WWE CEO.
Oh, wow.
He holds almost 14%.
So Vince McMahon, he's still involved.
He's still in the game.
Even after stepping down from WWE.
Yeah.
But his ownership went down.
It did.
After the merger.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that make him less interested?
Oh, that's a good point.
In seeing this whole thing succeed.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does suggest that there's been some stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And like a shift in who has the power in TKO Holdings.
Right.
But it's not just McMahon, though.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole bunch of other shareholders representing a bunch of different financial institutions.
Okay.
You got Eaton Vance Management with over 7%.
Okay.
Vanguard Fiduciary Trust Group, another over 7%.
Wow.
And BlackRock Advisors LLC, they got almost 7% too.
It's so crazy to think that like me as a fan, like when I buy the pay-per-view every month, that money is going to all these places.
That's right.
It's like going into these retirement plans in Canada and investment funds in Singapore.
Your viewership is connected to all this stuff.
It's wild.
Global finance tech giants.
Wow.
Even like government funds.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And we've only just started to like uncover this. It gets even more interesting when we look at who owns Endeavor itself.
Okay, so let's go deeper down the rabbit hole then.
Right.
What can you tell us about these power players behind Endeavor?
Well, one of the major ones is Silver Lake Management Co., LLC.
Okay.
They have like a 30% stake in Endeavor.
All right.
And here's where the tech world comes in.
Okay.
They're a global technology investment firm.
Wait, so a tech firm owns a chunk of the company?
Yeah.
That owns UFC?
That's right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of a surprise, I think.
It is.
Makes you wonder what it means for how we experience UFC.
Right. Like, are we going to be watching fights through VR headsets?
Wait.
Or betting with cryptocurrency?
Who knows?
That's wild.
We'll get into all that later. But let's finish this ownership structure. Right. Another big stakeholder is GIC PLTD.
Okay.
They have about a 7% stake.
Okay.
Now, this is a really interesting one.
All right.
It's Singapore's sovereign wealth fund.
Sovereign wealth fund. What is that?
Think of it like a massive investment fund, but it's controlled by a government.
Oh, wow.
So in this case, it's Singapore.
Wow.
Investing in Endeavor.
Right.
Which owns part of UFC.
So not only is my money going to Canadian pensions,
right,
but it's also part of Singapore's national investment strategy.
Exactly.
That's a lot to think about.
It is?
Yeah. That's wild.
And we're just scratching the surface.
Right.
There are other notable investors, too.
Okay.
The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board.
Okay.
Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC.
Wow.
And a lot more.
Okay. So we've got TKO Holdings.
Oh.
This powerhouse of wrestling and fighting.
Yeah.
And Endeavor is the one kind of in control.
Yeah, holding the reins.
And Endeavor itself is backed by all these investors.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them.
Including these tech giants and even a sovereign wealth fund.
That's right.
It's like every time I watch a UFC fight,
yeah,
I'm like participating in the global economy.
Yeah, basically it all goes back to the fact that UFC is this global business.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's just so intertwined with all these major financial institutions and interests all over the world.
It's crazy.
It is.
Okay, so we've kind of like mapped out this crazy ownership structure, you know, from the fighters in the octagon all the way to these like boardrooms and investment funds, like all around the world.
It's crazy how much money's involved, right?
It's pretty mind-blowing when you actually think about it.
Yeah, it really shows you how much sports entertainment and like high finance are all kind of mixed up together now.
Yeah, for sure. But let's like shift gears a bit.
Okay.
So we know who owns UFC.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean?
Right. Good question.
Like, what are they going to do with it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Exactly.
What could this mean for like the future of the UFC?
So are we going to see like UFC fighters cutting promos like WWE wrestlers now?
Maybe not that extreme.
Okay.
But I mean, there's definitely some potential for crossover. We could see joint pay-per-view events.
Oh, wow.
With both UFC and WWE stars.
That would be huge.
Imagine the kind of marketing they could do.
Yeah.
Endeavor could promote UFC to a whole new audience.
Right.
Using all those connections they have.
With actors and musicians and athletes?
Yeah.
I could already picture The Rock, like, promoting a fight
to
his millions of followers.
That'd be crazy.
But what about the fights themselves, though? Like, could this whole entertainment focus mean that UFC loses its, like, grittiness?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. You know, a lot of the hardcore fans are worried about that.
Right.
Do you think all this entertainment stuff might like dilute what makes UFC unique?
Right.
Some people think it'll be all about spectacle.
Yeah.
And maybe even like move towards more scripted fights.
I mean, as a fan,
yeah,
I would be pretty disappointed if that happened.
Yeah.
Like, I love the authenticity of the sport.
Absolutely.
The unpredictability. Like, wouldn't that alienate a lot of the core audience?
Oh, yeah. Definitely a risk of that.
Right.
Endeavor has to be careful.
Yeah.
They need to use the entertainment expertise they got from WWE.
Yeah.
But they can't compromise the integrity of the sport.
So it's like a balancing act?
Yeah, exactly.
Appeal to a wider audience, but don't turn off the diehard fans?
Right.
It sounds tough.
It is.
And it's not just about the fans either, right?
No, you're right.
This ownership structure also affects the fighters?
Big time.
Like fighter pay?
Huge issue.
That's been a hot topic forever.
Yeah. People have been saying UFC fighters are underpaid for years.
Right. Especially compared to other athletes.
Totally.
In like other big sports leagues.
Yeah. And given how much money UFC makes.
Yeah, exactly.
You would think they'd invest more in the fighters.
Right. I mean, it makes sense.
Logically, yeah.
Happy fighters perform better.
Right.
Attract more fans.
More fans, more money.
Exactly.
But the question is, will Endeavor actually prioritize fighter pay?
Right over profits?
Yeah. It's hard to say.
It's complicated.
It's really complicated.
And not even just in the fighting world.
Right. This goes way beyond that.
What do you mean?
Well, this whole thing with UFC and Endeavor.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a microcosm of the whole economic situation.
Oh, wow.
It's like labor versus capital.
Okay.
The push for fair wages.
Right.
That struggle for power.
Yeah.
It's all happening in UFC.
So you're saying like the contract negotiations, the arguments about pay-per-view percentages.
Right.
Even like health insurance and safety protocols.
All of it, it's all part of a bigger picture.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly.
If UFC fighters get better conditions, that could help athletes in other sports too.
Right. They might start demanding similar changes.
That's pretty powerful.
It is.
It's crazy to think that fighting is connected to all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even something as straightforward as fighting is tied to these larger forces.
Yeah, for sure. But there's another layer to all this that we haven't talked about yet.
We have it.
Technology.
Right.
Remember Silver Lake Management?
Yeah, the tech investors.
Yeah.
With the stake in Endeavor.
It seems like they could bring some major change.
Oh, yeah, this could change everything.
Like, what are we talking here?
Okay, so.
Robot referees.
Uh-huh.
Hologram fighters.
Maybe not that far off.
Yeah.
But imagine virtual reality experiences.
Oh, wow.
That put fans right in the action.
That would be intense.
Yeah, you could feel every punch and kick.
That's wild.
Or what about training programs with AI?
Okay.
That analyze a fighter's movements.
Oh, wow.
Help them get better.
That's cool.
And then there's NFTs and blockchain technology.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's talking about that.
That could totally change fan engagement ticketing, even fighter compensation.
So fans could buy and trade virtual memorabilia.
Yeah, exactly.
Using cryptocurrency. Or even support fighters directly through blockchain.
The potential is there.
That's crazy.
And Endeavor has the connections to make it all happen.
Silicon Valley and all that.
Yeah, they got the resources in the network.
So UFC has always been pushing boundaries.
Right.
Rule changes, weight classes, instant replay. Yeah.
This could be the next big leap.
This is a lot to take in.
Yeah,
We've gone from mergers and acquisitions to fighter pay.
Yeah.
And now this technological revelation.
It's a lot.
What does it all mean for the average fan?
That's what we'll unpack next.
Wow. I feel like we've covered so much in this deep dive.
Yeah, we really have.
Like we started with these corporate mergers.
Yeah.
And then we talked about like potential crossovers with WWE. Then the whole debate about fighter pay.
Big one.
And even like this potential tech revolution.
Yeah, the future of UFC is looking pretty wild.
It really is. It's a lot to process.
It is. But I think like with all this complexity.
Yeah.
And all these potential changes.
Right.
There's one big question we got to ask.
Okay, what's that?
What does all this mean for the future of UFC?
Right. Like we've mapped out who owns it.
Yeah.
We've looked at all the money involved.
Financial interests.
Yeah. And we've even like peeked into this potential future.
With all the tech stuff.
Yeah. So what's the big takeaway?
I think it comes down to this.
Okay.
UFC is at a crossroads. On one hand, you've got this sport that's always been about authenticity.
Right.
Like the raw athleticism.
And the grit of the fighter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
it's
also a global business.
Right.
It's all about entertainment and profit.
Yeah.
And constantly expanding.
So there's this tension.
Big time.
Between keeping the heart of the sport.
Yeah.
And like the realities of the market.
Exactly. And the decisions that Endeavor makes and all the other stakeholders.
Yeah.
They're going to decide which way it goes.
So will they like keep that raw unpredictability of the fights?
Yeah.
Or will we see UFC become this more polished entertainment product?
It's a tough question.
It is. And it's something every UFC fan has to think about.
For sure.
Like, do we embrace the growth and the wider appeal?
Yeah.
Even if it means changing the sport we love.
Right. Or do we hold on to that old school UFC?
The one we fell in love with.
The intensity, the underdog stories.
Yeah. There are no easy answers.
No. But I think the important thing is we as fans stay informed.
Right.
We stay engaged.
Yeah.
And we make our voices heard.
I totally agree. Like whether it's on social media or fan forums or just talking to other fans.
We have a voice.
We do. And we need to hold these people accountable.
Absolutely.
Make sure UFC doesn't lose its roots.
Even as it grows and changes.
That's what makes it so special.
Yeah, it's more than just a sport.
Right.
It's a community.
Yeah.
It's a global tribe.
Of people who love martial arts.
Yeah. And the thrill of competition.
Exactly. And that passion.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
No matter who's in charge.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with the challenge.
So something to think about.
All right. I'm ready.
What do you want the future of UFC to look like? What's important to you as a fan?
Yeah.
And what role are you going to play in shaping that future?
Those are good questions.
Keep those in mind when you watch the fights.
Yeah.
When you talk to other fans.
When you see the sport changing.
Because in a way, the future of UFC is in our hands.
It really is.
So that's it for this deep dive.
Hope you learned something.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring this crazy world of UFC ownership.
It's been a wild ride.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.